All right, everybody. I've had a lot of requests to make a video explaining Root, specifically the crafting system, and specifically how you craft in the game. It seems to confuse a lot of people, and understandably so. The cards can be confusing, especially the way Root is played. So let's talk about crafting and how you craft cards. But basically, the whole idea is cards have two purposes. You'll remember that every card has a suit, right? You have mouse, you have fox, you have bunny or rabbit, whatever you want to call it, and then you have the wild, the birds, right? When crafting, you completely ignore the suit, right? We want to look at the card like this. Like basically, like we don't care what the suit is. We are only looking at the cost in the bottom left or the top right, right? Okay, so for instance, for this armorers, we're looking at this fox and this fox. They're the same. They're always going to be the same in these two corners, right? That's the crafting cost. Completely ignore the suit, and you're looking at the crafting cost. Okay, so armorers to craft is going to cost me one fox. One fox. Okay, so whatever faction I am, I need one of my foxing craftable things, right? Okay, now, the thing about crafting is every faction does it differently. So what you're going to do is you're going to need the cost of whatever's in the bottom left or top right. They're the same. They're equivalent, right? You're going to need that cost to get this benefit. Now, when you see there are kind of three kinds of crafting cards, and that is a permanent upgrade, like Command Warren. It's gray, right? And it says, at start of daylight, may initiate a battle. That's a permanent upgrade to your faction. You put it down next to you, and you say, I can use this once at the start of daylight to do that action permanently for the rest of the game. The other option is something like travel gear or protection racket, where it says get that item. So it has a picture of the item, and then it gives you some victory points, and then you discard that card. One-time use, you craft those items, boom, they're done. They're shuffled back into the deck. All right, so you have your card, you know you want this Command Warren, but how do I get it? I got 2 rabbit tokens here, right? It says the cost for this is 2 rabbits. Well, what does that mean? Well, let's take a look at the Learning to Playbook. It says, crafting cards. Craft cards, you must activate crafting pieces in the clearings shown in the card's bottom left corner. You can activate each crafting piece only once per turn. That's really important because you can't do infinite crafting no matter what. So basically, what are your crafting pieces and how do you get them? So in the base game with the 4 factions, you see the Maki crafts with workshops, the Eerie crafts with roosts, the Alliance crafts with sympathy, and the Vagabond crafts with hammers. Okay, that's all well and good, but let's go through each faction once and talk about all of them. Okay, so the Maki to Cat, they craft, right here it says in daylight, using workshops. So their workshops, they have, all these workshops they can build on the map. They have to be built in certain clearings on the map. Say, you want to build in this fox clearing, you build a workshop here. Now you're going to have 1 fox crafting resource, and you can use that once per turn. So I could use that to pay the cost of armorers because it's 1 fox. Okay, that's great. Well, if I want the Command Warren, I'm going to have 2 workshops in rabbit clearings. Now that can be in the same clearing or it can be in different clearings, but it has to be 2 separate workshops, and I have to use them only for Command Warren. I can't use one of those rabbit workshops for something else on the same turn, on the same crafting phase, right? Okay, so workshops for Maki, they're a little complicated just because they have 3 different buildings. So they got 3 different things. I see a lot of players get mixed up because they think everybody has workshops, and then they get confused because like, well, I want to build my workshop. It's like, well, no, you're the Eerie, you get roosts. So speaking of Eerie, let's talk about that. They get their roosts. That's the only building they build, and it is subsequently also the building they craft with. So craft with roosts. Every roost that the Eerie gets on the map is considered 1 crafting resource for the faction clearing that it's in. So 1 in a fox would give you a fox resource, 1 in a rabbit would give you a rabbit resource. So if I wanted to craft this as the Eerie, I would need 2 roosts in rabbit clearings. Now, specifically for the Eerie, they can only build one roost per clearing, so they would have to have 2 clearings. That's kind of the nature of their faction. Okay, so who's next? Let's talk about the Woodland Alliance. Ugh, let's get rid of that ambush with an ambush of our own. They craft with sympathy. So don't remember, ignore their bases. We just want to talk about their sympathy tokens. Their sympathy tokens that go on the map are how they craft. Remember, you can only use a crafting resource once per turn. So one sympathy token in one clearing can only be used once a turn to craft. Remember, they craft in daylight and they use sympathy. So every sympathy that they have is one resource of the clearing that it's in. Okay, the Vagabond is a little different because he's a one-man army doing his own thing in the forest. He crafts with hammers. So he has to use a hammer to start the crafting, action, obviously. And then he has to have enough hammers to create the card that he wants. All his hammers match the clearing he's in. So if the Vagabond is in a mouse clearing, he has mice hammers. If he is in a rabbit clearing, he has rabbit hammers. So to make the cobbler, that's not what I want. I want the command warren. All right, to make the command warren, he would have to have 2 hammers in a rabbit clearing. Now you'll notice from this, the Vagabond won't be able to craft certain cards like Tax Collector that require 1 of each. And that's a designed limit by the game. All right, who's next? Let's talk about the Riverfolk. The Riverfolk are a little different actually than most everybody else because they craft with their trading posts, but only with empty trading post spaces. So during the game, you'll have your trading posts on the board, and as you build them, they'll empty up these spaces. The Riverfolk has to take some of their funds and transfer 1 to each empty crafting space that they have that is considered a resource. Basically, Riverfolk Company craft with their trading posts, but it's effectively their empty spaces on their board. So once they build a trading post, they have an empty space. They are assumed to have a crafting resource of that type, and they have to spend a fund on each one. So for instance, if they wanted Tax Collector, they would have to spend a fund on each empty space of the factions to get Tax Collector, and they would only be able to use each empty space once a turn. That's, or again, why you can only use a crafting resource once a turn. Okay. Now, the next one is the Vagabond. Now, Vagabond is pretty different because he's got a hammer. Now, this is completely the same as the other Vagabond, but all right. Next, we have the Lizard Cult. They craft with gardens. So they're going to have their gardens on the map, right? And they're all the different factions in the suits. Now, the important thing with the lizards is that they craft using gardens matching the outcast suit. So remember, the outcast suit is based on like what the Lost Souls were last turn, and they can only craft with gardens that are of that suit. So again, just like the Vagabond, the Lizard Cult will be only ever able to craft things of the same suit in a turn. So Tax Collector, yeah, there's no Lizard Tax Collectors, okay? But Command Warren, now they could build that, right? As long as they have 2 gardens in rabbit clearings, and rabbit is the outcast suit for that turn. Okay. Now, the Underground Duchy. They craft with citadels and markets. So they are a little versatile because they have 2 different types of buildings, and they can craft with either of them. So basically, citadels, markets, they can be the same place, different places. They all count as 1 resource each. So for instance, if I had both of these spaces on this fox clearing with a citadel and a market respectively, I would be able to craft something that costs 2 foxes. Well, I have armorers here. That's 1 fox. I would be able to use, say, the citadel to craft that, and then I would have another fox available still that turn to craft something else. All right, pretty simple. The Corvid Conspiracy crafts with plots face up or face down. So basically, they have their 4 different types of plots, right? And you have the tokens on the board. They can be face down or face up, and the Corvid Conspiracy can craft with them no matter what. So it doesn't matter what they are, you know, especially like something like the bomb. Once it's flipped over, it goes away from the board. But you could craft something with it while it's face down. Nobody has to know what that plot is because you can craft with all 4 of them as long as they're on the map somewhere. And you know, a plot marker on Fox clearing, that would be a Fox crafting resource. But remember, you can only use 1 crafting resource, 1 crafting token a turn. All right, the Lord of the Hundreds, he crafts using his strongholds. So same thing, pretty straightforward because he's just got, they're not actually on the board, but he's just got 1 building, the strongholds, right? And there's a bunch of them that are going to go on the map. Now there's some other tokens that the Lord of Hundreds has, but just his buildings go on spaces. They give him a crafting resource of that fat suit, and it's pretty straightforward, right? All right, and last but not least, we have the Keepers in Iron. The Keepers in Iron craft with way stations. They have 3, so that lets them craft virtually everything in the game, with a few exceptions. And they will be 1 crafting resource of whatever clearing they are in. All right. All right. I hope that's fairly clear to everyone. You know, you get a resource per whatever your faction's crafting building is, and then the cost is in the bottom left or top right of your card, and then you get whatever the upgrade is right here. So gray for permanent, the brown for less permanent stuff, and basically, yeah, all those different things you can crafting. If you have any questions about this, feel free to leave me a comment and, you know, add to my engagement on YouTube and make me a YouTube star. If you're saying, well, Bill, what about the Law of Root, section 6.327, you know, blah, 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 whatever, I would say I don't really care. No, but seriously, if there's some errata that changes some of this, you know, feel free to hit me up and let me know, and then I will tell you to go play something more your skill set, like Chutes and Ladders or Catan. All right, take care, everybody. Have a nice day. Peace out. That's it. We'll edit that part out. That's Fox or yeah, you get it. You know, you get it. It's important. It's important that you get it because it's really simple. All right.